Hello, I'm Stephanie Neal with the 369th Experience program. I'm the executive producer. The 369th Experience is the recreation of the Harlem Hell band using African American and African American and Puerto Rican students from HBCU colleges and other universities and colleges around the United States. I'm so excited to be here today. We're going to talk about the historical influence that the original Harlem Hellfighters, better known as the 369th Regimental Band, has had on the influence they've had on HBCU bands of today. This is especially important right now because we're going into the centennial of both the Harlem Renaissance and the Broadway, the centennial of the Broadway musical Harlem Shuffle Along. I want to thank Ewan Chen, Nidal Harvey from Harlem One Stop and the Harlem Cultural Collaboration for inviting us to be a part of this program today. And I really want to thank all of you all for joining us. Like I said, I'm really excited because it's so amazing how these soldiers of color took that precision and their skills they learned in the war and have passed it down to the HBCU bands of today. And we're going to treat you to a conversation. It's like a time travel conversation where our panelists, who I'll introduce to you in just a bit, will share their experiences as teachers, musicians, and performing artists. And they're going to tell their journey along the battlefields they're going to help tell the journey, the story of the Harlem Hellfighters along the battlefields of World War I and II, and then bring it up to the Harlem Renaissance and shuffle along. Now, you may say, why would they choose December 12th? Well, December 12th is significant in the history of the Harlem Hellfighters and the soldiers and the band, because on December the 12th, 1917, our soldiers were sailing to France to be a part of World War I. And then a year later, December the 12th, 1917, the French officially gave up command over the soldiers, over the military. Also in December, you had the first HBCU the HBCU football game in Livingstone, in Salisbury, within Salisbury, North Carolina, in December. But before I introduce the panel and we really get into it, take a look at this video.
As Americans prepared for war with Germany, African Americans living in Harlem persuaded the governor of New York to grant them their own unit, the 15th Infantry Regiment. They would also need their own regimental band. The man who was asked to lead it was James Reese Europe, the best-known orchestra leader in New York, who had begun to incorporate elements of jazz into his infectious, syncopated ragtime music. The regiment arrived in France on New Year's Day, 1918. Europe and his men played the Marseillaise with such drive and excitement that the waiting French crowd took a while to recognize it. American officers were so impressed with Europe's unique sound that they sent the band on a tour of army camps and French villages. They played French and American marches, plantation melodies, and the song Europe had made famous, the Memphis Blues.
trumpet section.
Let's give it up for the 369 Experience Band. Give them the love, give them all the love. And their very special guest.
With a soul-rousing crash of cymbals, cornet and clarinet players began to manipulate notes in that typical rhythm which no artist has ever put down on paper. Then, as the drummers struck their stride, their shoulders shaking in time, the audience could stand it no longer. The jazz germ hit them and it seemed to find the vital spot, loosening all muscles and causing what is known in American as an eagle rocking it. And I am satisfied that American music will one day be the world's music. Private Noble Sissle.
It'd be a trip because you know I go to Alabama, I might go see Alabama play or whatever. Halftime, white people, they get on up and go to the concession stand. See, because they don't want to see the band, halftime, white people. All right, there's halftime. You want some nachos? All right, come on, let's go get some nachos. Hey, you want something? Hey, shut your pie hole. Right, there we go and get some nachos. Because nobody want to see the band. Because the band, it's just okay. It's good. They do nice precisions, but that's a good time to get on up and go get you a hot dog or something. Because, don't nobody want to see. FAMU, Alabama State. Morehouse, Clark, Tennessee State. Tuskegee, Marshall, Crimson Pipers. Boy, you ain't been. Am I lying? Am I lying? And why the bass drum don't never get no love? Why the bass drummer don't ever get no love? Big Pookie. Big Pookie got on half a band suit. Cause see, he can't wear the pants. He have on the band suit and some sweatpants. Oh, come on, y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. But the band wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for Big Pookie. Or Big Pookie be playing the hell out of that bass drum, don't he? Big Pookie be ready, Big Pookie. Y'all, majorettes, pole majorettes, they be ghetto. They don't never practice, they got one routine. Get your ass.
Okay, I think we're ready and we're back. Welcome back, everyone. I needed that to relax a little bit. You know, Black folks got something for you, baby. And I'm so happy to be here today with our talented panel. I'm going to introduce each one of them, and then we're going to have a conversation, or each person will share. We're going to start with Mr. Anthony Jones, Sr. Mr. Jones is currently the band director at Livingstone College, and he's also the band director for the current 369th Experience Band. Welcome, Mr. Jones. We have Bobby Sanabria. Bobby Sanabria is our multicultural warrior, and he'll take us through a journey from Africa and bring us back to the current time in the HBCU bands. Welcome, Bobby Sanabria. Also joining us today is Elena Martinez. Elena Martinez is a folklorist, and she's full of history, and especially information about the Puerto Rican band members and their history and their culture. Welcome, Elena. After Bobby, we have the fabulous Mercedes Ellington, better known as the granddaughter of the famous Duke Ellington. Welcome, Mercedes. And last but not least, we have Noble Sissle Jr. I mean, can you imagine being the junior of Noble Sissle, the band drum major and vocalist of the 369? But welcome to all of you. Okay. Hey, Mercedes, Elena. Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, first of all, welcome. Yes. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today. But
Pleasure's all mine.
Let me ask you something. How does it feel? How does it feel to be the band director of the 369th Experience?
It's an honor and a privilege. I get the best of all the worlds. Kids from FAMU, from North Carolina Central, Southern, Jackson, Delaware State, all of these notable HBCUs that have made a big part of our history. And these young men, Prairie View, all of these young men have just done some outstanding things, and they make my job very easy. It's a lot of fun, and we're able to tweak and work things out and do things that in a normal band situation you wouldn't be able to do, because it's almost like it's like an all-star band. So
we got the best. We got the cream of the crop. We got the best from all of those schools.
Yeah, creme de la creme. And
so grateful.
You can, one of the things I like is they'll play something and I'm really impressed with it, but I'll say, okay, when are you guys going to play? And they'll look and they'll take it to another level. And it's just fun. It's like driving a Porsche and just seeing how fast it can go and all the control, because these young men really take music serious, and they really have enhanced the fact of carrying on the name of 369. I think that's the other part of it too. They really are standing on the shoulders of the men that have made this force. And, you know, like they say, you stand on the shoulders of our forefathers, you can really see clearly what's ahead. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have them. But now, name one of the funniest moments that you had with the band. One that won't get us in trouble.
Okay. One of the funniest moments to me was we were doing a parade. Now, mind you, this is a sit down band. This is a band that normally we don't do parades. We give concerts and we're not marching. So you've got Southern, you've got Jackson, you've got Florida A&M, you've got Prairie View, you've got North Carolina Central, you got Texas, you've got every different type of marching style that you can think of. And we've never marched before. We've always sat down and practiced. And so we got out at the Army, we were on the Army base, and we were learning traditional marching style. And it was just so funny to see everyone come with these different styles and do all these things. And then eventually, in a matter of seconds though, it was funny to watch, because it's like, okay, Southern has their way of doing things. Jackson has their way of doing things. Alabama A&M has their way, and we've got all of that mixed in. But these musicians, in a matter, it was just funny because we all stood at attention certain ways. We all were waiting for a whistle certain ways. But it's just amazing. And that's just the beauty of music and being with musicians like these young men. In a matter of minutes, they were able to put something together, and we were able to do our first parade like we've been marching for years.
Yeah, we have to give them credit. You know, we were always maybe a week out before we really knew if we were going to get funding to be a part of any of the centennial events. So it's like, I'm like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
They would say, okay, Ms. Neal, and they were on it. So I really do give them props for hanging in there and being flexible, and you yourself and all the other supporters of the group. Because you know we had to turn it around there in a minute. But now let's talk about the halftime shows.
Okay.
And how the HBCU halftime shows were influenced by the military band.
Well, like as everyone know, I'm going to say everyone knows, the military bands were very sharp and crisp as far as making a left oblique, a right oblique, or a right flank, and about face. And I would say that we put a special sauce on the way that things are done. One of the things that most of the bands are known for, instead of going to the right, you look to the left and then you go to the right. So if I'm going to the right, I go, and then I go that way, as opposed to just turning to the right. So it's those kinds of show things, that make things pop. Instead of snapping up the horn, maybe you would, well, hold on, gotta get the props. Instead of snapping up the horn, you would let everybody know, and then put the horn there. Instead of marching straight ahead, you put a little flash with it. You know, get that little groove with it. So there were some things that separated the straight ahead style, and I could compare it kind of to like classical music and jazz, where you've got, here are the notes that are dictated. This is what we want you to play. And then you've got the jazz. It's like, here's the frame. You fill in the picture. Here's a chord, here's the 1, here's the 4, here's the, okay, I'm sorry, might be some non-music people out there. Here's a chord, here's another chord, and here's another chord. And you've got to make some music out of this. And then, so a lot of improvisation came in, but on top of that, it was still, everyone had to do the same thing, just like in tradition, in your fundamental core style bands. But one of the things that we had, like I said, was that little flair with a plume. You know, when a lot of people don't understand, it's a plume that goes on the top of your shake-up. And that plume, a lot of people think it's just for show. It's actually for big bands. When you have a big band like a Florida A&M or Jackson State or Southern, if you're the person at the back, you can't see what's going on. So you're taught to look at that plume and make sure that you're marching with that plume, because the sound has an echo, just like we're kind of having like a slight delay with what we're talking about now. So I would hear something later, but the strike down the leg gave that flash, that spat that you wear. That showed how high you were getting your feet up. The cape, when they do that, it was all about flash and that special sauce that made things really pop. We wanted to always make things pop and make things look. And then on top of that, putting in that dance routine, or what we call the breakdown. Some people call it the freak. You know, because as a performer, there are two people that we perform to. That's the deaf and the blind. If I'm deaf, all I do is see what you're doing, and it needs to look good. So if you're singing, you're deaf, and it doesn't look like I'm doing much. But if I'm singing,
okay.
Yeah. So, you know, we perform for the deaf and blind. If I'm blind, I can't see all of that moving and stuff going on, but what I hear should be on point. So those are the things. Those are some of the things that really make marching. And just like Ricky Smiley said, we're not going to get a hot dog. No, we got to sit down. No offense to my football people. The only reason there's a football field is for band.
Okay.
Halftime.
Okay, just hold on just a moment. Then we're going to bring in, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Now we're going to bring in that multicultural warrior, Bobby Sanabria, you know, the 7-time Grammy nominated, you know, brother from another mother. I love Bobby. Bobby's going to take us. You know, I heard someone say, you don't know where you're going, or you can't get to where you're going if you don't know where you came from. That made, you know, you can't quote me on that, but you know, I'm paraphrasing. Bobby is going to take us from where this kind of drumming and syncopation started and bring us on up to the Harlem Renaissance. Hello, my friend Bobby Sanabria.
Hello, Stephanie. Hello to everybody and my great colleagues that are on the screen right now. In a very short amount of time, I'm going to give you a little bit of the things that you hear today in all forms of African diaspora music: jazz, rock, funk, salsa, R&B, and of course, the marching band tradition as represented by Maestro James Reese Europe. One of the main things that we inherited from West and Central Africa is the concept of many rhythms at the same time, polyrhythms, and polymeters, many meters at the same time. Now, some of you are watching and listening and going, what is he talking about? Well, for example, if I have this rhythm, I could count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or I could count it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. I could count it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or I could count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. So already I'm initiating that. I have a counter rhythm to that. One, two, three. etc., etc. So that's the main thing that we inherited from West and Central Africa, okay, during the colonial period. And of course, all that was transferred in places like Puerto Rico, Cuba, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, the rest of the English-speaking islands in the Caribbean, etc., and of course through South and Central America, and of course the United States. Now, although in the United States it was different because the people that established the 13 colonies weren't too keen on people of African descent singing in their languages, playing their rhythms, their native drums, or speaking in their languages. But no matter how oppressed the people are, their culture will always survive and thrive in some way. And the unique thing about the African American experience is that it survived in and thrived in the blues and in what we call jazz, which gave birth to all the other forms of music that I just talked about, funk, R&B, etc. All these popular forms of music. When you hear a heavy metal band playing, they're playing rhythms. The drummer is playing rhythms that can be tied directly back to Africa, and they go back through jazz and, of course, the blues. Now, there was a time period where African rhythms or rhythms of African descent could be heard in the mainland United States, and that was in Congo Square in New Orleans from the early 1800s all the way up till when the Civil War began. And you would hear rhythms like, for example, from the Afro-Puerto Rican complex, a rhythm that we dance to, style of music called bomba. And with bomba, we have various rhythms, and one of them is sika, and this is documented. You could hear this in New Orleans, the sika. Or the yuba, which is very strong, 6 against 4 type of rhythm against 2. What do I mean by that? What I was talking about before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that was played in New Orleans along with Afro-Haitian rhythms, Afro-Cuban rhythms, etc., etc. And these all, unfortunately, were stopped when the Civil War happened. And then, so on the weekends, on Sundays, you could hear these rhythms being played in Congo Square. People of African descent could sell their wares openly. And of course, anybody that wasn't of African descent, for lack of a better term, whites, they would see what was going on, and they were influenced by that, particularly a gentleman by the name of Luis Moreau Gottschalk, who is considered the first classical virtuoso that this country has produced. But Luis Moreau Gottschalk was multicultural. He was of German, French, Afro-Haitian, and Jewish descent. So as we say in the Bronx, he was all that in a bag of chips, so to speak.
Okay.
But in any case, all of that African rhythmic vocabulary got transferred into one humble instrument. This, the tambourine.
Tambourine.
Yeah. And of course, from there, after the war, when African Americans had access to musical instruments, they transferred that rhythmic vocabulary to the horns, drums, etc., etc. Okay? So, the brother was talking about the difference between a so-called white marching band and an African American marching band. Well, the biggest thing that you hear, the difference, is in the phraseology, the phrasing. All of the cadences, etc., etc., have an African American, African Caribbean spin to them because of this rhythmic vocabulary that was preserved to a certain extent in New Orleans. People have to realize New Orleans had this incredible triangular trade route between Mexico and Cuba, and that was always happening constantly. So, and New Orleans can be considered, in my opinion, the northernmost city of the Caribbean. So all of these elements are in the drum cadences that we hear today, particularly in a rhythm that we call the clave, which comes originally from Western Central Africa, brought to Cuba, and then spread throughout the rest of the Caribbean. This humble rhythm, there's 3 notes and 2 notes. 3 plus 2. But depending on the melody, it could be 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3. For example, so an example of a rhythm of a melody in 3/2 clave would be Vamos rumbero que la rumba ya va a empezar. Vamos timbero que la rumba ya va a empezar. That's a composition by Maestro Tito Puente, a native New Yorican like me, Para los Rumberos from 1955.
Okay.
Here's an example of a song in 2/3 clave by Maestro Puente. So we start on the place with the 2 beats. 3. Saca tu mujer bandolero, sácala a bailar. Saca tu mujer bandolero, sácala a bailar. Now this rhythmic vocabulary got to New Orleans. And you hear it to this day in all of the second line marching band cadences in New Orleans, Louisiana. So, we would have a drum major with a whistle. That rhythmic cell that we heard just now, the clave, from Western Central Africa through Cuba, Puerto Rico, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, New Orleans, etc., is the basis of everything we do in popular music today. I said the get to get to get busy, get busy, get to get busy, get busy. And that you hear constantly in the music of Maestro James Reese Europe.
Okay.
You hear the song Memphis Blues, or another song that he made famous, St. Louis Blues. Okay? The clave might not be played by anybody in the band, but it's internal in there in the melody. For example, in St. Louis Blues, ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-sa-ba.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh, I hear.
And of course, African American inflection as applied to the horns, growling, the uses of mutes, the use of false fingerings to get other notes, excuse me, sound effects, etc., etc. When the European audiences, particularly the European marching band leaders and concert band leaders, heard this band play for the first time, of course, it's been well documented that they said they must be using trick instruments. And of course, James Reese Europe laughed and told them, meet me tomorrow. Actually, take the music tonight and see if you could play it. And they couldn't. And then the next day they came to see them how they played. And that's the important thing about James Reese Europe, is that he exposed this African, West African rooted, Central African rooted rhythmic sensibility reborn in the United States through the African American experience, and exposed European audiences for the first time to that. And the rest is history. And we're so proud in the Puerto Rican community because there were 18 Afro-Puerto Ricans in the band, including the person who became later known as Latin America's greatest composer, the one and only Rafael Hernandez.
Okay, Bobby.
And trombonist in the band.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Now, I need to stop you right there. Thank you so much, my multicultural warrior. Uh, a lot of that information that you shared is really documented in a book that called The Harlem Rattlers and the Great War, The Undaunted Tale of the 369th Regiment and the African American Quest for Equality. And it's a book that's co-authored by Doctors John H. Morrow Jr. and Jeffrey Sammons. That book should be in every university and high school archival for reference. It has everything. But we're going to stop right here and we're going to introduce or invite Elena Martinez, and she's going to pick up. Elena is a folklorist at City Lore and just a wealth of information she can share. But she's going to start with, of course, the 18 Puerto Ricans that were in the Harlem Hellfighters Band, and specifically the two brothers, who are they? Rafael Hernandez and his brother Jesus Hernandez. So thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Elena, you want to join us, please, ma'am?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
So, one thing before we start, Bobby, put the volume off your computer. So just before, I want to, it was great to have Bobby as an introduction because he ended with Rafael Hernandez, and that's where I'll start. Yeah. Rafael Hernandez is sort of all the Puerto Ricans that were part of the 369th, he was the most famous. But it's really incredible because for us doing research on this history, the band, the regimental band that went over to Europe had almost like 1/3 of the band was Afro-Puerto Ricans. And, you know, I think in general, I think the larger story of the Hellfighters and James Reese Europe is not known to a lot of people, which I think is you know, is sad. But then on top of that, there's even lesser known is that there was Afro-Puerto Ricans were part of this experience as well. And part of this history.
That's why we're here. So we got this whole pandemic, this whole time and time, you know, this is the time to share and have all of that stuff that's been hidden down come up to the top so everybody can really get a clear understanding of what's happening and, you know, who we are, you know, how this music came about. So we'll have an opportunity.
Oh yeah, so the Puerto Ricans that became involved in the band were because James Reese Europe, of course, was asked to be picked to lead the regimental band for the at the time they weren't the 369th yet, they were the 15th Infantry Regiment of New York State, and they were led even though it was a black troop infantry group, it was led by a white commander, Colonel William Hayward, who was really interested in making sure that regimental band was really good. He just saw that having a great regimental band, a hot band, would be an incentive for people to join, right? To join and join the regiment. So they, the bands in Harlem, they had, access to the greatest musicians who were part of that music scene at that time, but they were having some trouble finding some reed players and some certain horn players. Probably because, probably some people didn't want to leave their gigs at good playing nightclubs to get maybe to go into the army at the time. But for whatever reasons, James Reese Europe needed to fill in a few parts of to the band. And he said, what people told him, why don't you go to Puerto Rico? They have an incredible scene there of great musicians. And so there's different, why did people suggest Puerto Rico of all places, right? There's all through Latin America, there are great musicians. But what's interesting is that, James Reese Europe had also been, had formed the Clef Club in the Clef Club Orchestra prior to any of his work with the regiment. He also had the Syncopated Society Orchestra for the Vernon Irene Castle, which is another part of his history which we haven't talked about. But in those bands, he had met some Puerto Rican musicians. For instance, one of them was Rafael Escudero, who was an incredible tuba player, very well known and respected tuba player. So so James Reese Europe is already meeting some Puerto Rican musicians, knowing that they're really virtuosic at what they do. Then he's also on the label of the Victor Talking Machine Company. As James Reese Europe is on this label, but also the Victor Talking Machine Company goes down to Puerto Rico early in 1917 and does a recording tour through Latin America, but also stops in San Juan in Puerto Rico. And in San Juan, the leader of the Banda Municipal there is Manuel Tisol. Banda Municipales, or the municipal city bands in all through Latin America, are really important because they gave rise to this sort of like cadre of virtuosic, well-trained musicians, because that's where all the cream of the crop went to get their gigs afterwards at these municipal bands, which every city had. You know, you think about in the 1890s to the early 20th century, they were sort of like the public entertainment of the time. So they had to be very good musicians. So in San Juan, the leader of the municipal band there, Manuel Tisol, is very famous, also works with the Victor Talking Machine Company. And so Victor and Manuel Tisol and James Reese Europe have this connection already. So they probably have this connection. So James Reese Europe again has a way to get in touch with musicians down there. And on top of it, Rafael Hernandez, as a young man, left his home on the west side of the island, moved to San Juan, and was part of the band there, Manuel Tisol's band. So he's part of this band, composing at a young age. So James Reese Europe goes to Puerto Rico, recruits 18 musicians from the island, including Rafael, who plays trombone, his brother, and also some other, in other very good musicians from that era. Rafael Duchesne Montriguez, who was comes from a family, the Duchesne family, has a long history of teaching music as music instructors and as musicians to this day. Felix Gregorio Felix, who later on stayed in New York and played with jazz bands later on after World War I. So they're recruited. They come to New York and start taking part in the regiment, learning what they have to do. Noble Sissle Senior is the one who sort of takes them under his wing, even though they probably have a hard time communicating with Spanish and English, but he takes them under his wing and, try to get them through the training. But they are part of the band. And what's the sad thing, again, for me, the interesting thing is that Rafael Hernandez's music is today, he's considered Puerto Rico's greatest composer. And some say Latin America's greatest composer, because his compositions are not just played in Puerto Rico and well known to the Puerto Rican community. The Dominican Republic loves him for songs that he did, Cachita and Cuba, all through Latin America. In 1929, he composed this song Lamento Borincano about a farmer not being able to sell his crop. It's the beginning of the Great Depression. All through Latin America, that sort of resonated during the Great Depression. So his music resonated, literally throughout the Western Hemisphere, from through South America up through the Latino communities in North America. So here's this man who's well known through half the world, but never is even known or put down that he was part of this influential band that brought jazz.
Elena, there are a lot of really important details that have not been included. For example, James Reese Europe was the man, but he also had Eugene Michael, as part of the 369, because when he was out doing things, raising money, Eugene Michael was a part of this. So we have so much rich history that we need to share. We can't do it today, but this does open the door up for other opportunities. So let's see.
Well, one other thing, just to connect it, because I know Mercedes will be coming on. Okay. Also, just to make a connection, Manuel Tisol, who led the Banda Municipal that Rafael started at, his nephew is Juan Tisol. Juan Tisol comes to the United States and ends up performing in Duke Ellington's band and writes great classics, including, of course, Caravan, which is sort of like a standard today. Wow. So that connection just sort of comes full circle between the Afro-Latinos and jazz in the United States.
Yeah. I really believe we all smile the same language. It's just like, when it's good, it's good. Thank you, Elena. Now let me just bring on the Miss Fabulous Mercedes Ellington, who is going to share with us specifically dances that were made popular as a result of the 369 and the music that they created. Mercedes? You got to unmute yourself, I think.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Hey, love that headgear.
I'm going to try to speak English and not reindeer language so you can understand what I'm saying.
I think that'll be good.
Nope.
I had to make a list of all of these dances because I had no idea there were so many of them, but they span a period from the 1919, 20s, 30s, 40s. And I was made aware of all of this stuff when I was working with Donald Sadler in a few of the musicals that I assisted him to choreograph, because we did musicals like No No Nanette and subsequent things. And he was a meticulous researcher, so he would always look up the sources of these dances, the names, how they got their names, why they were named that way. And it's really ironic because his teaching stays with me to this day, because currently I'm involved, and well, not now, we're all shut down, but currently I'm involved in ballroom dance competitions, and the ballroom dance competition world deals with all of these categories and different names of the dances. And what really struck me about the names of these dances is that they came from Blackpool, England. So that when you're talking about all of the Latin dances and the categories in ballroom dance competitions, the levels, the setup was made by Blackpool, England. So, for instance, when I do competitions today, my partner is my teacher, and we compete in the Latin category. And the Latin category consists of samba, rumba, cha-cha, paso doble, and jive. 5 dances. Now, there's a separate category that includes the mambo, and I can't understand why is the mambo separated from the cha-cha. But, you know, this is the decisions are from England, so it's not my bag. But I made a list of some of the other dances of the day. For instance, back in the day, they had a tango. They had a thing called the Mexiques, the turkey trot, the hesitation, the Boston, the one-step, the two-step, the castle walk, the Sebastian, the Maurice, the half and half, and the Argentine tango, which I was surprised because there's the American tango and then there's the Argentine tango. And then, of course, there are all the rags. And they are also a crossover between the types of music and the types of dance. When I went to Juilliard, we would always have these deep discussions with the musicians. Which came first, sound or movement? And we always had a discussion, well, the grass moved, but the wind was moving the grass, and did the wind make a sound? I mean, it was ridiculous, you know. And
But you had the conversation, so.
We had the conversation. So
Okay.
that was just, you know, each of us thought that we were important in our own way, and we were.
And you were.
Yes. And we were providing explanations and our demonstrations of interpreting what the music told us to do. Now, Ellington was a really a big proponent of erasing categories. So he did not like the terminology, so to speak, of because he felt that it hemmed people in, and it structured them to such an extent that they felt that they had to write in a certain way, they had to compose in a certain way, arrange in a certain way. And he liked the freedom of letting people just do what they do, which is how so many of his compositions came about, because he would have the orchestra members would create their music in their interpretations of their improvisations. So in his catalog, he's got almost 3,000 compositions, and many of them are credited to the fact that the musicians were allowed to create their own thing, you know, which is a thing that tap dancers do now. Tap dancers, the improvisational tap dancers, are in a class by themselves because they're individual, and they are they're subject to their own devices, as opposed to precision dancers, the Rockettes, the June Taylor dancers. Those are precision dancers. Those are soldiers. Those are people who are aware of formations and accuracy. And like on the football field, you get that. I remember June Taylor once told me that she was inspired by formations of the football field, and for her things that she did. And of course, the overhead camera was the kaleidoscope type of formations. But you look at the Rockettes, and especially my heart goes out whenever I see them do the toy soldier number, because that really is the epitome of the precise skills that have to be engaged when you are doing a number like that. Now, it was very obvious to me when I saw this year's interpretation of the Thanksgiving Day Parade, and the Rockettes were not allowed to touch each other when they were performing. And so their hands were in a position that was next to, and they were socially distanced from the person next to them, but they were still very accurate. And if you try to do those kicks without holding on to somebody or without your balance being supported by another body next to you, it's not an easy thing to do. But we were always very much encouraged to be a machine. And for the time that I was in Florida doing the June Taylor Dancer, the Gleason show, and then when Gleason decided to end his thing, I came back up to New York, and it was very difficult for me to transition into being an individual person, and an individual dancer. So I was so used to being a robot. It's like being a person, not being an individual person or an individual dancer. And so it was very, a big source of angst for me, and a different set of circumstances. Then there was, but I wanted to say something about Ellington and the big bands. The thing about the 369th is that those guys together playing those huge amounts of people. I mean, I am a fan of big bands. Bobby, when Bobby Sanabria, again, he gets his band. We did a Nutcracker thing at Birdland last year, and Bobby had 21 musicians on the Birdland stage. And that Birdland stage is not a big stage, but he fit 21. And besides that, I had dancers. I had tap dancers. I had a belly dancer. A belly dancer, she was trying to do her number, which was the Arabian dance. She did a belly in front of the saxophone section, and the saxophone section was a little distracted from the belly dancer. And then we had the Spanish dancers, we had the Chinese dancers. I mean, this was like a transition, and Bobby had the control of the beginning. We created a program where everyone marched through the audience first, and then we had a Nutcracker person who made tap dance noises, sounds by himself before the orchestra joined in. So the tap dancing and tap dancers are actually musicians as well as dancers, and you get a lot of different precision work. When we go back to dealing with precision, I mean, how are you going to say that precision soldier type work is not involved when you see Swan Lake? You see the swans are like a precision line. When you see like a Bayadere, that precision coming down those ramps and everything. I mean, that is a hard thing to do. It looks simple, but the precision that is used to accomplish the picture that they do. I mean, you have we're going back to saying, okay, which came first, movement or sound, and you get involved in all kinds of suppositions and intellectual arguments, So
Right. Let me just ask quickly, Mercedes. Thank you so much for being with us today and being with us throughout this program. But let me ask you quickly about James Reese Europe and the castles.
Yes.
And the dance. I think it's the foxtrot. If I'm
the foxtrot, the castle walk.
Wow. Okay.
And all of these, the turkey trot. I guess they must have taken every animal and tried to do parts for that animal. I think there's a thing called the chicken wing. I'm not sure. But
I know it used to be the funky chicken. Remember?
Yeah, they take all the animals and apply these dances. But I have here this poster behind me is on the show that I did a while back, and John Bubbles was in the show. Yubi was in the show. And
Blake.
yes, and Adelaide Hall, Elizabeth Welch, Nell Carter was in it, Gregory Hines was in it. So we had a conglomeration of people evoking the music and the rhythms of the past in this one show. And it was a historical incident where people are learning about history through music and through dance. And I think that that's really the best way to learn history. Not a bunch of dates and numbers, but through the music and through the transitions that it took. And because UB and James Reese Europe and UB Sissle, they all brought about certain aspects to create this thing that my grandfather used to say. People asked him about jazz music, and he didn't like to use that term, but he said that he, rather than call it jazz music, it's American music, because it was a conglomeration of things that were created in rhythms and sounds and transitions from chords to chords in America, specifically in America. And his, I mean, these things got translated to Europe through media, through radio. Ellington was at the Cotton Club, and they put it on the radio. So years later, 1971, we go to Russia, and they already knew all the music that the band was playing. They had musicians because they heard it on Radio Free America. They heard it on the radio. So it was transitioned all the way to Europe, to Russia, everywhere by the media. And now it's dance, and you cannot transition dance on the radio. You have to see it on film, on television, something. So you need those kinds of media to transport that kind of knowledge about dance to the rest of the world.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop right here to say a couple of things. We have an incredible photograph of your grandfather at the grave of James Reese Europe.
Oh my God.
So to me, that speaks volumes as to the respect there. As African-American men and as musicians. The next thing I want to say is we have to keep you on hold so that when we go to Europe, to France next year in 2021, we have to believe that the world is going to open up. Then you can come and do some of your dance routines.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch, and like I said, like that brim, Missy. Okay. Now, before we're almost on time, but before we go to Noble Sissle Jr., there is one more video that we would like for you all to see.
Beats 2 and 4. If you got some white friends, they'll be clapping like this, y'all. You say they can't clap. Yes, they can. Clap in a different way. The same fact holds true with 6/8 time. Europeans stress 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dum 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 dum. The stress is on 1 and 4, not for black people. When you got 6/8 time, blacks stress 2, 3, and 5, 6. Listen to this. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, what a fall. Okay, why y'all clapping on the wrong beat? You're not clapping on the wrong beat. Africans have a different meter, and Africans have a different tonality. European music is diatonic, 7 tones. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's Italian, Europe. In West Africa and South Africa, it is not diatonic with 7 tones. It is pentatonic with 5 tones. Whitney Phipps points out that if you want to know black music, just look at the black keys on the piano. Do, re, fa, sol, la, do, re, fa, sol, la. Just those 5 tunes. Those are the only 5 notes you'll hear. And somebody knows the trouble I've seen. It only uses 5 notes. The same with Deep River. It also uses 5 notes. That's all. I believe a change is coming. It's not deficient. It's just different. Many of us are committed to changing how we see others who are different. When you look at and listen to, I'm in Michigan, okay? Here in Michigan, look at and listen to the University of Michigan and Michigan State University bands at halftime. Their bands hit the field with excellent European precision. Dun 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 da 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 da. Now go to a Florida A&M and Grambling band.
Okay, thank you and welcome back. Let me make sure I got my, okay, we're good. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to go to our final panelist, the last but not least, Mr. Noble Sissle Jr. And Noble Sissle Jr. is a graduate of FAMU. And he worked with the infamous Dr. Foster and the FAMU band. So Noble is going to take us he's going to give us some experiences there and bring us on back to the Harlem Renaissance and the Harlem Shuffle. Noble.
Thank you very much, Miss Neal. Love those pearls, and I love those reindeer heads. When we watched the June Taylor dances, we had to find out which one is she? There she is, beautiful Mercedes Ellington. Briefly, after the Civil War and the brass bands that were everywhere and still under the influence of colonial type militia marching, the World War I, when the black regimental bands, and there were quite a few of them, the Harlem Hell was the first one to land in France. But a lot of people who were in those bands, when the war was over, they became faculty and music teachers throughout America. And they brought back that influence that they got in France, still military. But what happened was when the drill sergeants who were in these black units started singing along and stopped doing 1, 2, 3, 4 and started singing cadence, things changed in the way they walked. And when they got back to the States and got these jobs, it was believed that Tuskegee University actually started the first HBCU band, and they were ROTC influenced, so it was still kind of military. But in 1946, Dr. William P. Foster, after leaving Fort Valley and Tuskegee, took the job at Florida A&M as band director. And sometime during the early stages of his career there. Now, when he got there, there were only 16 instruments and 45 musicians. So he had a lot of work to do.
Oh, wow.
But two of those musicians were Cannonball and Nat Adderley. So he started out with some heavyweight musicians. However, as the 50s rolled around, during a rehearsal, a practice, several of the band members started, they were playing Alexander's Ragtime Band. They started doing these high steps. The people watching reacted, and Dr. Foster noticed that, hey, that's exciting. So let's see if we can do a little bit more of that. So through the 50s, they started doing a little bit more prancing. They came up with several speeds in which to march. The infamous 360, which is like 6 steps every second, and all the way down to the Death March. They began to move on the field differently. Sometime in the late 50s, early 60s, Dr. Foster thought maybe we ought to do something a little bit more than just play concert music out there and prance. So he asked if Beverly Barber, who was a dance, she was a physical ed teacher, but she was also a gifted dancer. And matter of fact, she should be watching this Zoom discussion because she just celebrated her 85th birthday Zoom style. And Beverly got out there and taught these clumsy musicians how to dance. And that started it. And from that point on, Dr. Foster, in creating all these different movements and incorporating current songs, it started catching on. And a lot of HBCUs who had to play against FAMU saw that. And they said, we've got to do something better than what we're doing. There's one story of the band director at Southern University. He and his band came to Tallahassee to play at the halftime show, but they went on second. The FAMU band, this is before they had the big stadium, the FAMU band went on first. And they came on at that high rate of speed. Dust was floating everywhere, and it covered the Southern University band. And Dr. Gregg said, that'll never happen again. So it started becoming very competitive. And as Dr. Foster said, by happenstance, that someone was just kidding around and doing some high steps, and it just caught on. And it's been like that ever since.
Okay, a couple of things, Noble. We really would like for the people that are joining us, if they have questions, to put them in the chat. And I do want to say that this program will be posted on the Harlem One Stop's YouTube page. So for those that may have came in late and that kind of thing. So if you have any questions, we want everybody to be engaged, and now is the time to do that. Post some.
I've got something from Mercedes.
Okay.
I pulled this out of my archives here. Where is it? I can't see it on that.
What is it, Noble?
Okay, here is a picture of her grandfather dancing with Lena Horne.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
And that's my dad over there saying, all right, you two, knowing
Wow.
Okay. So being from FAMU, and were you in the band, Noble?
No, I was in the stands watching the band. Like many of us who I went to FAMU with a saxophone thinking I'm just walking in on this band. I mean, I am Noble Sissle's son, you know. The man put me in front of some music that had no name on it, and he counted down 3, 2, 1, play. I said, what's that? He said, it's called sight reading. And I said, I think I'll just go to the ROTC unit and march, because it was mandatory, either that or the band. So I love music from afar. By the way, Dr. Foster's son, baby boy, Anthony, is watching this from New York City.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know if we have any questions in the chat room, and I'm not the technical person here. You know, as I say, I have to stay in my lane. And I want to say thank you to all of the panelists, Mercedes, Elena, Mr. Jones, my multicultural warrior. I think he had to leave. So.
Many times.
Yeah. And especially to you and Chen and the Harlem One Stop folks there. We can stay here a little longer, but I really wanted to show and share just one more video that will kind of conclude this show to show how positive being in an HBCU band is for our African American males today. And we need something to support them with the police brutality. We need to show them that they are important to us and we appreciate what they do when they do perform on the stage. Yeah, it's just it's good health, good mental, good health and development for our young Black men of today. So if we can show that last piece, then we're almost on time.
We're all ready for war. It's smashing a gnat with a sledgehammer.
It's about to get bad for you and your band.
Boom!
We make the game. It's like you don't have an HBCU football game without the band.
Boom!
There's nothing like being in the boom, baby.
Boom!
The band definitely turns up, and I love that aspect of the band because the band is a place where you can act a fool, and it's so natural because everyone else around you is having that same energy.
Sonic boom!
Sonic boom!
Jackson State University, Sonic boom on the side.
When we march, we're marching, and we kind of do this little swing and sway. So you got your head going, you got your swag, and you got your march.
Whenever we're rocking and we playing, you already know that bass line is funky. That song is bumping. We doing this here, we got the horn, we rocking like this. Oh no, y'all not ready.
The rocking movement that you see us do is called the swing and sway. That helps distinguish us from any other band. And if you see us from afar, you'll see the plumes, which are the white things on top of our hat. You'll see it moving in a swaying motion. And when you see that, that'll let you know that the whole band is on one accord. And it's also easy to see if someone is messing up.
And they're going side to side, side to side.
And when you implement that swing and sway into your marching, you'll be surprised how much groovier that music sounds.
Man, I'll never forget being a freshman and learning the Tiger One on. That feeling that comes over you and your first performance with the boom, like I'll never ever forget the feeling that comes over me.
With the Tiger Run on, the drum majors will call the band to attention. You'll get a whistle,
tweet, 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 chair.
The chair, your leg should look like a chair. It should be just that good.
Or we hold it, we hold it. Tweet, 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 and we go. At that point, the other band is already gone. They're afraid. They've never seen nothing like that before.
The energy that we see from our crowd, it lets you know, okay, we're doing the right thing. And that actually just, gives us even more of the momentum to keep going. Okay, let's play even harder. Let's see what emotion is going to jerk them to do this.
Crank on you! Feel that bass!
It's an energy. When you march, you hear the drum cadence, and then you hear the bass drum.
Yeah, there's other great bands out here, give credit when due, but marching in with the sonic boom of the South, I don't think there's no other feeling.
It's a feeling like no other, just knowing, okay, I just did something right there. We just did something. Break it down. Now let's shock them again. Let's just show them again.
Give it all out. You don't want to squab. You don't really want to mob. You don't want to know your eyes when it comes to the best. You ain't never tried. You ain't never tried. You ain't never tried.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Listen, I need to say, we do not own any of the music or any of these videos. We got them off of YouTube. And we thank you for putting them out there because it helped us with our program today. But before we leave, let's just do one last little conversation between the panelists. Okay, we're gonna go, well, I was gonna go left to right, but let's start with Mr. Jones. Tell us how you really feel, Mr. Jones, after being a part of this.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So full circle, my brother was one of the drum majors at Jackson State. My father was a band director, and he also marched at South Carolina State, the original South Carolina State, which is called the 101. And the reason they call themselves the 101 is because they felt like they were one better than FAMU, which is called the 100.
Okay.
So I learned and grew up with all of this history, and it's just been. And then, like I said, of course, I'm from Livingstone, and we were the first group that was civilized, smart enough to get together and have a football game.
Okay.
So the first HBCU. So it comes full circle. I'm just glad to be on this panel and glad to be a part of this. So
okay. Well, we're gonna have to hear from all these other HBCUs, but we'll take that and create another thing so everybody can get their say. Okay, Elena, let's hear what you have to say.
I'll just end on, since you're talking about the marching bands, to bring it back to the Puerto Ricans again. What Rafael Hernandez might not be known to everyone. One of his most famous songs, El Cumbanchero, is probably played for marching bands everywhere.
Yeah.
So whether you know it or not, you are listening to, when you're at the ball game and listening to the band play El Cumbanchero, you're listening to Rafael Hernandez.
Good deal. Okay, Mercedes.
Well, it really is very inspirational to see these young ladies and gentlemen get so involved in music as an option to crime, because it is really all unfolding. And when you have music as a part of your life, as a major part of your life, and you're nourishing yourself with this option, then you can't go wrong. I mean, it's just very formative, and you get involved in, and music is a very healing thing. So that if you are involved from the early ages, and that's a troublesome time when you're in high school, and I mean, I was of the opinion that maybe just before you're supposed to go to high school, you should be shipped off to Mars and then come back after you're like 22. But it's just that if you get involved with music, it kind of gets you all, it calls on all of your natural rhythms and all of your body rhythms, your heartbeat, your pulse, your everything. And it's a very, as Ornette Coleman really thought that it was a very, very healing thing. And also the people at the Louis Armstrong Music and Medicine Center, they send musicians to the people in hospitals, children, and even people who are in homes, and play guitar and sing with them, and it really helps them in the healing process.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Before we have Noble Sissle, I want to remind you that any information that you need about the 369th Experience, you can go to our website. It's www.369experience.com. We love questions. We'll be here to answer, and we're always interested in coming to your town to perform for your, at your events. We're a 501c3. Again, thank you. Now, Noble, bring us home.
Okay, thank you very much. The exciting thing to me about the 369th Experience Band are the students from these various HBCUs, all of whom compete against each other. They have rivals going back 100 years. But when they came to New York within 2 days with Anthony warming them up, they became a whole new band and broke some expectations, because no one knew this band had never played before. It wasn't a band, it's just 42 people. But the one thing I want to point out, and I've seen a lot of these bands play, is something about Southern University. At halftime, that band will go out there, dance, and then give you the scores of the halftime of what the teams are. And nobody's figured that out yet. And they won't tell anybody. It's like the Coca-Cola formula. They just will not let you know how they do that.
Right.
But that's HBCUs for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Again, thank you, Ewan and Harlem One Stop, and let's do it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Look, thank you.
Great, guys.
Thank you, and good night.